Welcome back to Leaders in the Making. We are so excited that you are joining us today as we dive into another episode meant to develop you as a young leader as you are stepping into whether it's a summer job with us or any other area of life. We are just excited that you have decided to tune in to better yourself as a leader. Today, we are going to be talking about anxiety. I mean, we know the world that we live in is a fallen and broken world, and there are challenges around every corner, and that it can be very overwhelming, and the weight of worry there. So we're excited to be diving into this, what it means for us, how we can combat it, all of those things. And I'm very excited to welcome a very special guest, Miss Genee Francis. So Genee, thank you so much for joining us today. Very excited to dive into this conversation with you. Before we jump into things, I'd love to give you a chance to introduce yourself, tell our listeners who you are, your expertise, and why you're really excited for this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
So yes, I am, first of all, a wife and a mother, but I'm also a licensed therapist, and I have had the pleasure of serving individuals and couples and families for the past 18 years. Prior to becoming a therapist, I served in higher education and worked with college students and really helped them navigate just the life transition that is college, and help them to really kind of identify these different feelings. And so I'm excited about this conversation because anxiety, of course, is very commonplace for that age and stage of life, but it's actually commonplace for everyone.
Yeah.
So very excited to be here today.
Yeah, I mean, you are truly could not find a more perfect person to sit in the seat of, having your background in counseling, but also higher education and working with college students.
Yes.
It is a great kind of marriage there of your giftings and your talents and your skill set. So we're honored to have you joining us today. As we jump into it, I love to just go ahead and define what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So when we think about anxiety, if someone is sitting there thinking what is anxiety? How do I put
Sure.
words to this thing that I'm feeling? How would
Yeah.
you define what anxiety is?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll say that it's a feeling, and it is normal. And I say that because I think it's important to normalize that all of our feelings are what I would call gifts from God, and they are there to inform us. And so I would say that it's just that feeling of worry, of nervousness, of sometimes feeling a little bit keyed up. And it's almost, on a certain level, it can get to a place where it can feel like your body is just making your mind is making laps where your body is trying to keep up. Understanding the feeling of anxiety and actually where it lives inside your body is so important.
So to me, what I'm hearing is it has a lot to do with fear, right? There's a lot of fear caught up in that. Would you say that's accurate?
Sure. Fear and worry.
Okay, cool. And where does that, what is the root cause for a lot of that? When you think through, all right, I understand it's feelings and stuff, but where does that come from? Where does it originate from, I guess?
Sure. It could be several roots. It could be emotional. It can be biological. It could be generational. It could even be cultural. So if I were to go in depth a little bit about all of those different origins or all those different roots, what I would say is culturally, I'd start there, is we live in a society where there is constant information coming at us. There is constant stimulation around us. And so I think culturally, it's just this idea that there's this nonstop noise. And so one of the things that I talk to people about is controlling your input. We have so many different sources of input that we could actually find ourselves in a state of anxiety just because of the way that our culture and our society is set up with our phones and our social media and all the things that are constantly buzzing, the news and all those things. Generationally, I'll speak to the fact that sometimes we can inherit some of the symptoms and some of the ways of anxiety. Just if we grow up with anxious parents, if we grow up in homes where there wasn't a lot of calm and a lot of quiet, being in environments where things are just kind of nonstop. Some other root causes could be our brain chemistry. It could be our sleep patterns. It could be past trauma. So all these different things you can consider roots. At the end of the day, though, it is a real feeling, and it is a real feeling that most people will experience within themselves, and if not within themselves, with someone very close around them.
Yeah. As you were saying, I was literally thinking, I mean, so this I sometimes can associate like some people are more anxious than others, or like some
Sure.
people struggle with anxiety and others don't. But it really sounds like this is for everyone, because whether it is a biological thing that
Yeah.
you're born with the inclination to struggle with anxiety, or if there's a big trauma that happens to your life or the world around you, like anxiety is a real kind of issue at hand that does impact everyone, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
As you were saying this, I could not help separating this. The busyness of the world around us and
Yes.
the negative news, social
Yes.
media, everything that is happening in the world around us. The thing that kept coming into my mind is slowing down and having this like sense of slow. And I am a big advocate of spiritual formation and like diving into
Yeah.
what are the things I can do for my spiritual life. Part of that
Sure.
is slowing down.
Sure.
And so when you're saying that, I was just thinking like the spiritual health and the mental health, they feel like they're connected in this. And would
Absolutely.
you say anxiety impacts both of these?
It can, absolutely. And I think the solution is in both of those areas as well. Yeah.
What
So when you've recognized that I'm dealing with anxiety, I think there's a physical component. I think there's an emotional component, but I absolutely believe that there's also a spiritual component.
okay, and so the solution, let's kind of like dive into that a little bit. So when you're feeling that, is there like a one all like solution that can help all those areas of focus, or is it like, all right, if I'm feeling anxious, the physical solution is XYZ, this mental is this, spiritual is that? How would you?
You know, what I would encourage is, because I think as individuals, we're all different. And I think depending on our root of anxiety probably determines how we should manage it. What I would say is that I recommend every person identify a toolbox for themselves, a coping toolbox of how to settle themselves and how to calm their nervous system. Because that's what's happening is our nervous system goes into it's triggered and it believes that there is a potential threat, might go into fight or flight mode. And so how do we calm our nervous system? So I would encourage somebody to develop just a formula for themselves around anxiety. And so I think the solution to that is compounded. I think it's all of the above. Journaling is a beautiful idea to kind of help. If your mind is racing, there is power in being able to dump those thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. So that's more something you can do that's more reflective, and that may help calm you, your mind. But then I think developing systems around some quiet time with God and devotion with God, I believe that is so important as well. And maybe even the most important, because as believers, we know that the Lord, he encourages us in Peter to cast all of our cares on him because he cares for us. And so I think in doing so, being able to pray and to talk to him and to stay in daily communion with him, I think that's so important.
Yeah.
When you start talking about managing anxiety and really learning how to surrender.
Yeah.
And just give it all back to him, lay it all at his feet. I think he delights in our ability to do that. So I think that is so important. I think also, again, with all those inputs coming in from all over the place, from social media, from news channels, from just our phones and TV and all the different things, one of the input sources, the greatest, right, is going to God's word and really kind of finding ourselves delving deep in that and grounding ourselves in that. So that would also be part of the solution. I think physically, we mentioned physical solutions, being able to move your body and just keep yourself kind of moving through. A lot of times, if you can go on a walk, or if you could find yourself just in a physical exertion mode, it can really help to recenter you, to cause your mind to begin to shift on what's real and what's true. And it also helps to kind of just move away from these feelings of fear or worry.
Yeah, this is really good. Especially that you said a lot of like things there, Jenna, that I want to like hit on. But the thing that for me, I'm very much a fixer. I'm glad you mentioned the toolbox, because that's how I want to think. Like, all right, what are the A, B, C, D? What are all the things I need to do?
Absolutely.
But I'm also glad you pointed out it's not just a copy and paste. It's
That's
not
right.
the same. For me, I try to like simplify that, and so I think like, okay, I have to slow down, which could be like the overarching theme there is like you want to kind of slow your mind, slow your body, slow just where you're at.
Sure.
But the way we get there can be different.
The way we get there. Absolutely. And when you start talking about slow, there's a couple of rhythms, daily rhythms, that are very important in terms of learning how to slow, because anxiety, one of the symptoms is that racing heart. rate. And so when you feel your heart racing, or where you feel your it's those physiological responses. So it's the heart rate, it's the sweating, it may be trembling. So when those things start happening, it's basically a sign and a symptom to you that I do need to slow. I need to slow down. I need to calm my nervous system. And the way that I can do that, deep breathing is so powerful with that. Learning how to control your heart rate, lower your heart rate by getting your breath under control and taking some very deep, intentional breaths. Another way to kind of slow yourself, again, is just to sit and learn how to be still in the quiet. That's how we can hear from God as well. But I think we work and live in a very busy society that keeps us rapidly moving through life. And if we could learn how to calm ourselves and to seek God, but also seek quiet and stillness, it could really help with some of that too.
Yeah. And I'm glad you even pointed out like the heart racing. And I think we've talked before, and I've told you, hey, I personally don't feel like I'm a very anxious person. I
That's
don't think
right.
that I struggle. This is what I've said at the time, quote unquote. I don't think I struggle with anxiety.
Sure.
But even as you're describing that, I'm realizing I do struggle with anxiety. It might look different from other
Sure.
people. And it may just be me more so recognizing what are the things that cause that in my life, and how do I combat those, and how do I have like a healthy relationship with that.
Sure.
Something you mentioned earlier too is like the relationship to scripture and what we read about anxiety, and not to be anxious for tomorrow. Tomorrow has its own problems.
Yeah.
That's a command. That's something that we read in scripture, which means that essentially disobeying that command is a sin. So like leading a life that isn't dealing with anxiety is leading against God's plan for our life,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So I think that when I'm thinking all that stuff, I'm realizing, okay, I can deal with, even if it is the small areas that I might feel anxiety impact my life. When I feel my heart racing, when I feel my mind racing, I know that it's there. It might impact me differently than it will you or any of our
Absolutely.
listeners out there, whether it's a physical, mental, or spiritual impact. But there are still things I can do to calm myself and walk into those.
Absolutely. Couple of things come to mind as you say all of that. And I think that just learning yourself is so important, and just being able to identify how it shows up in you is so important. I would say for myself, I used to get really hot. Internal body temperature. So there's no necessarily there's no outward sign that I'm hot, but I could feel on the inside of my body that my internal temperature was rising. What I learned is how it shows up in me. That's how anxiety shows up in me. And someone else, it could be a knot in their belly. And somebody else, it could be a headache. And someone else, it could be actual nervousness or trembling. So just learning what it feels like within your body. And the thing is once you learn that, then you can begin to manage that. And you could go right into your coping toolbox in that moment versus allowing things to grow. Because with anxiety, just with any other diagnosis, like if it starts off as a normal, everyday kind of reaction to maybe a stressor or a trigger here and there. If you don't learn how to manage it, it could become a disorder, and then there's a larger thing at stake. So I think just knowing how it shows up in you, and then being equipped to have a toolbox where you could, with confidence, be able to manage it is so important.
This is so good.
Yeah.
I'm very, very excited to be pointing out the things that people can note,
Yeah.
the things that they can look for and search for. Thank you for sharing a lot of ideas.
Yeah. Can I share a couple others?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think for some other people, it may look like just tension building in their shoulders or their neck. It could look like I can no longer sleep through the night without waking up with racing thoughts, or just something is on my mind and I don't know why I can't sleep. It can show up as just those memory slips where you're like, I just can't find my word, or I can't find my thought, or I just don't remember, right? And so when your memory starts slipping, I think that's one way to inform yourself that, oh my gosh, there's probably something extra that I'm carrying right now that I need to take a moment and just kind of pay attention to.
So as these things are happening to anyone who's listening, and they're starting to recognize, as soon as you say like the knot in their stomach, they're like, that's me. What's the next step then? As they start to recognize that. Is it once you feel that, then you react to that feeling with something?
It could be. Like, I think, again, developing your own coping toolbox. And I think that this should be done proactively. I think we should all develop lifestyles where we have daily rhythms that are encouraging us to treat our mental health all the way across the board, whether it's depression, is anxiety, whatever it is. I think we should have daily rhythms that include things that calm us on a daily basis. And so again, it could be the grounding work. It could be just learning how to do the deep breathing, the physical exercise. It could be the daily devotion with God, just whatever your toolbox is. It could be, for some, going and sweating in the sauna for 20 minutes a day, right?
It's not my story.
Right, not your story. I actually love that. Nice. Or taking a nice hot bath.
Yeah.
But whatever it is that calms your nervous system and really helps you. So I think you should proactively have a toolbox. And I recommend it. I recommend parents to teach their children that. I recommend that for college students. I recommend that for anybody.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one thing. But then if it gets to the point where it feels like it is taking over your mind, taking over your day, you can no longer function, having a problem concentrating. So when you feel like it is now impeding my ability to be productive and to do the things that I used to be able to do well, I think you need to seek higher level of care. Whether that looks like a conversation with your general physician, whether that looks like engaging in a relationship with a licensed professional, whether that looks like some biblical counseling. But I think figuring out, how do I, be able to identify this? How do I figure out where I am on the spectrum of anxiety? And then what is recommended from a professional for me to do? Because sometimes it can become bigger than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love imagery.
Yes.
and think so. I want to make sure I'm hearing this right, and you tell me if I'm wrong. But as you were saying, like toolbox, it just had me racing and thinking that like doing house projects or anything. There's oftentimes you have a bunch of different toolboxes around.
Absolutely.
So there's the preemptive work. So the things that we can be doing in that toolbox to kind of hopefully prevent spikes of anxiety in our life. Then there's the toolbox to go to if we do feel that, the way that we react to those. And if necessary, we call in the person to come fix the sink because we're not professional. Like there's the additional toolbox that we can go to if we need to. Does that fit that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Cool.
for sure.
Again, I'm just such a visual person. And so I like having those
I love
helps
that.
me think through it.
I love that.
Okay, so I want to, as we shift and kind of think through, now that we understand what anxiety is, how to combat it, how to recognize it, all of those things, I want to think about like how this applies to our leadership staff. And one thing that I want to think through is there are we know that in life there are circumstances that happen to us that could cause a spike in anxiety.
Sure.
For some, it might be given the opportunity to lead.
Sure.
So it could be like, hey,
absolutely.
we're giving you more responsibility, and that could make someone's like they could be excited for it. Like I could be like, I'm really excited to do this, but also feel the anxiety of like, oh my goodness, now all this responsibility is on my shoulders.
Absolutely.
So for anyone listening who's jumping into this for the first time, and they might be feeling some of that, do you have any like words or thoughts towards them to help prepare them for the season ahead of them?
Absolutely. I think there can be a lot of pressure on leading people, and I would even emphasize even more pressure sometimes for younger leaders. And I just think that sometimes the pressure comes from this idea that we have to have all the answers. You're right. We got to know everything going on. We got to be able to just lead in a way that's not realistic for anybody. So I think just realizing that we are called to be we're called in our leadership to be able to help lead people, but we're not called to just be the answer.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think we have to be careful about taking on unnecessary pressure.
That's really good. And I know in the first episode of this that we did with Aaron and BP, we talked about the really cool experience that WinShape offers for young leaders to be able to come in and get a lot of experience learning and leading at such a young age. It is a great opportunity, but you're right. It's also with a lot of responsibility, and that does come the extra pressure that we can put on ourselves as young leaders stepping into it for the first time. So it's good to be aware of that and to know that going in. And I think to your point, having the tools already in place that help you with your daily anxiety. the calming and the slowing down should help with this as well as you're like stepping into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think once you also understand what's in front of you and understand what's been asked of you as a leader, I think you also have to be able to surrender the rest of it to the Lord and just know that the Lord has called you to this assignment, and that He will provide you with whatever you need in order to be successful. And in that, it keeps us, I think, anchored in Him, trusting Him, just kind of in a position of surrender towards Him, so that it's not a situation. He is the light of the world. We are just supposed to be, you know. Jesus is the light that lives in me. So Jesus is His light that lives in me that's going to help me as I'm trying to lead these other people. But I don't have to be the source, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so much like wisdom. I wish I would have known this at a younger age, because I tried to have the answers for everything. And I thought if I'm leading, it means that I have to know and understand everything. I also felt like it meant that I couldn't struggle with X, Y, Z. I couldn't have these struggles because I'm supposed to be the one they're looking up towards. But there's so much wisdom and understanding, like my struggles and my shortcomings, my failures, that the areas that have been hard for me in my life, the way that I have worked through that can deeply impact someone else. And so for me, even sitting in this, not in a college student leadership role, but sitting here having this conversation with you, I'm taking away like, okay, the skill sets that I've learned that help me with anxiety, I know that I can help teach someone else or bring that to someone else, of the tools, share the tools with others to help them if they are also dealing with anxiety or feel in a similar way. So there's so much wisdom in having that, owning it, not necessarily running away from it, but learning how to cope with it.
Yeah. I think with leaders too, and just understanding is that I think some of our greatest task is serving others and caring for others. And so figuring out how to really lean into the person in front of you or to your team and really getting to know those people individually, I think that also helps to take some of the pressure off of, like, I don't have to know all the answers. I just need to figure out how to serve and care for this person well. And some of that is learning kind of what their strengths are, but also learning where they're frail and where they need additional help. And so just being able to take the pressure again off of yourself, but knowing that if I can't do anything else well, I am called to serve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that, would you recommend a leader to like ask questions directly to someone on their team, or to like, are there certain things, should they be looking out for some of those triggers, or I don't know if symptoms is a good word, but the triggers you're pointing out earlier, is it enough just to be looking out for those, or is it okay to have a conversation with someone and ask like, hey, do you know the triggers in your life, and what are the things I can be looking out for?
Yeah. I think what's most important is just to build relationships. And I think to start with a relationship, and part of relationship building is curiosity and getting to know the person in front of you. And then in that, allowing those different details to organically manifest and come to the surface. And so then there's that piece of it. But then you've got people who will self-report like, hey, this is a struggle and this is something that I know about me. And so then that's great. But then you also have the gift of observation and being able just to kind of get to know a person. And then once you get to know them, you can begin to see sometimes an outward manifestation of anxiety or depression or whatever is at play. And so I think that there's more than one way to get to that landing point, but I think that relationship is most key. And just the openness that we create and the safety that we put in place, so that a person knows that you care for me, you're not just leading me, and then that will open the door to more conversation.
I'm so glad you said that. I think at my church, we talked about this recently, but one of the characteristics of Jesus, I mean, Jesus did so many things well, but something that he showed a lot was that he sees, knows, and loves us.
That's right.
And we see it all the time in examples of him interacting with people in the Gospels. But to see someone is to, be able to physically see and know and just know like where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
To know someone is to get a little bit deeper and understand
right.
what that means to them and how that like impacts them. And then to love them is to have the action behind that.
Sure.
And I think that there's such wisdom in that of like, you're right, the relational side, it can lead to many things. It can have the conversation of like, hey, what are the triggers in your life? It's also just knowing someone deeply and being like, hey, I know you, and
Absolutely.
I can see that you are acting a way that might be different than when you're in your healthier state. Absolutely. Or when you're in your, but then the back end of loving is acting on that with them.
That's right.
Whether that's you asking them like, hey, what helped you?
Yeah.
Or having moments of, hey, I see you freaking out. I see anxiety building up. Let's slow down. Let's breathe with me. Let's do this together. There's action steps there that lead to the love that we should have for anyone on our team, but really anyone we're interacting with daily.
That's right. That's right. Yep, I love that.
Genee, this is so good. This has been such a good conversation. As we're kind of wrapping up in this realm, is there anything that you would want to leave our leadership staff with? Or again, not even necessarily anyone who's working for us for camps, but anyone who is either stepping into a role of leadership or has aspirations for leadership in the future.
Absolutely.
Any like final thoughts that you would want to leave them with?
Yeah. There are a couple things that come to mind. I would start by just saying that it is so important, and I encourage everyone to just recognize and know the signs and symptoms of anxiety and how that manifests within you. When you start with yourself and you're able to kind of take a deep dive with yourself, it will help you as you begin to work with others who may be experiencing that around you. And so it's so important to do that. The other thing I would share is that your faith is so important as you step into these summers with other people. And just knowing that as a leader, being grounded in your faith is so important because it should inform our choices, our decisions, how we show up. It also informs what we believe about ourselves and how we treat others. And so I just think it's so important to just really focus on just being a person who is grounded in your faith, because regardless of what shows up, be it anxiety or anything else, it's that faith and that groundedness that will help you navigate that well.
Yeah, this is so good. So know yourself, have your toolbox ready, be ready to get to work, and be able to see those around you. This is so good. Genee, thank you again so much for this. Your heart for students, your heart for counseling and helping others. Honestly, if I just think of one word as that, is helping others. So thank you so much for joining us today and being a part of this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
It was a true blessing.
And thank you all for listening to this week's episode of Leaders in the Making. As we are wrapping up, I want to challenge you. If you know of any friends that you think would benefit from conversations like this, from growth and development, we are still looking for top-notch summer staff to come alongside us for the summer of a lifetime. So my challenge for you, think of those friends, think of your classmates, anyone you may rub shoulders with who you think would benefit from this and wants to spend their summer impacting the lives of others. Send them over to work@winshape.org and encourage them to apply today. We oftentimes say camp is for the campers, but we also know that the Lord does incredible things through camp to our lives as well. So there's so much opportunity for growth and development there. So again, send anyone you know who would benefit from working at WinShape to work@winshape.org, have them start the application, and let's continue to make this summer unforgettable for you, your friends, campers, all of them. Thank you so much for being a part of the WinShape mission. Until next time, I'm your host, Titus Arnold. Thanks for listening.